Welcome back to Atypical Talk. This is a podcast where we have conversations that illuminate the intersection of faith, culture, and the common spaces of our humanity. I'm Abby.
I'm Joel.
I'm Kenton.
Kenton is here to join us again. He is our... What is your official title?
Everything. Creative arts director / accountant.
Yep.
Those two things.
Naturally.
Very common.
Yep. So he's joining us back here again, but this is our first episode in the new year. So I want to start off. Do you guys have any resolutions or life changes you are making in 2025? Are you like resolution people? Like, do you normally do resolutions?
I am not a resolution person. I like at all. So I always feel like it's just setting myself up for disappointment about this time of the year, actually, about the third week of January. Mm-hmm. So I'm not quite the resolution person, but there are some trying to have some guiding principles, or usually I have a word or two that is over my year. Sort of coming back to a lot. And so this year it's pace. And so just trying to live at a more manageable pace with work and home and life and rest. And, last year was a year where our new building was being finished and we were moving into it, and my wife and I had a real baby. So we were just looking at 2025, planning our spots of rest and having great conversations around our pace this year, which has also coincided with the first series that we at the church kicked off this year as well, with the rest of your life. So anyway, pace is my word.
Does that make you a pacer?
Oh, I like it, and I didn't even make that connection. But I am a Pacer fan. They would not let me on the court, but I am.
What about you, Kenton?
Same as Joel. I don't set New Year's resolutions.
If you don't have goals, you can never be disappointed, right?
Sure. That's awful. I'm already disappointed. I'm just kidding. But no, I don't really do New Year's resolutions specifically. I think probably the same reason for years. I was always like, I'm going to get a gym membership, or I'm going to, get back into doing this, or, move away from this. But no resolutions. I mean, ironically, Joel mentioned the series we were just talking about, and Sunday we had just talked about Sabbath, and my wife and I had been very intentional, I'd say for the last 6 weeks or month, or maybe a little bit longer than that, about already making Saturdays our Sabbath day. So I guess my resolution, or life change rather, would be to just kind of continue to do that. Because we've just been... we just hadn't been great at that because busy, same thing, having a kid and all of that kind of stuff. But, since we've started doing it, it's crazy to actually relax for a day. And actually feel it.
Because it's weird at first. And you almost feel like I'm doing something wrong because we're
I
so
still
conditioned.
have massive guilt. And I feel like a failure because I've spent all day and I'm like, well, what did I do today? But football season has made that easier. So college football being done, it'll be a bit sadder, but it's all right.
Yeah. I don't make resolutions either.
We're the three least New Year's people ever.
New Year, same me.
I'm like, time is a social construct. Like I can pick up anything at any time, but I've been trying to just cook at home more, make more meals at home, and not resort to going out to eat, and saving money that way. And so we've done pretty well so far. And we're only 3 weeks in, but yeah. Okay, so on the topic of the new year, I see a lot of people talking about, manifesting their 2025. So I wanted to talk about that with this Relevant magazine article titled, "Should Christians Be Manifesting Their Lives?" Manifestation as a concept isn't new. It's rooted in the so-called law of attraction, a philosophy that gained popularity with the 2006 bestseller, The Secret.
The Secret.
The idea is that if you think it and feel it, it'll happen. The author of this article talks about 4 ways that manifestation isn't as biblical as some claim it is. Manifestation enthusiasts love to quote Romans 4:17, "Call into existence the things that do not exist." This verse isn't about humans manifesting their dreams. It's about God's power to fulfill his promises to Abraham. Second, some argue that manifestation is no different than speaking life, a practice rooted in Scripture. But here's the thing. Manifestation often elevates personal desires above God's will, crossing the line into idolatry. Third, manifestation by design is about getting what you want now. It's hard to develop patience or self-control when you're laser focused on immediate results. And fourth, manifestation shifts focus from worshiping God to worshiping outcomes. At the heart of manifestation is a question of authority. Are we trusting God to provide what we need? Or are we trying to take control? So what did you guys think? Like, what did you think about the author saying that manifesting is self-centered and pushes God out of the picture, all of her different points in this?
Yeah, I really appreciated the article and think it was really insightful. No notes. No, I thought it was great because I do think it's really interesting when there's this concept that we see all over the place online. We see it in the ideas of like vision boards. I don't know if you guys have ever seen those, but like a poster board with this is what I want my life to look like or my year with cutouts from magazines or newspapers or whatever.
Pinterest just is manifesting.
Honestly.
That's what it is.
Sorry, I feel like Pinterest.
Yeah. But it is like this very positive themed way of looking at things. And I think on the surface we think, well, like, I mean, it's just, it's fun. And it's also maybe something to help me focus on what it is that I want. But to look at it and see how it actually diverges from Christian spirituality that the same person might be wanting to hold was really interesting to me. I mean, from the Romans 4:17 verse, which is just taken out of context, ripped out of its context and its story. They're talking about Abraham and trusting the God who can bring things from nothing, you know. And so that's just a great example of, you know, bad Bible reading in that regard. But also like the idea of worshiping outcomes instead of the God who gives outcomes. I literally was just having a meal with somebody a couple weeks ago where they were just so frustrated because they felt like God had abandoned them because this thing that they had wanted, prayed for, didn't come to pass, and so they wanted to throw away the whole thing. And at near, you know, the end of the conversation, it was almost like, man, like you're not putting your faith in this God. You're just wanting something from this God, he's a genie, and it's life. A life of faith is more mysterious than it is what you want to make it math. Like if I do this, God gives me this. And so I think manifestation can create that kind of treating our lives like math. If I do this input, I'm going to get this outcome. So yeah, I think is just really, really, really insightful and really shows this subtle, self-centered spirit, but also danger in trying to just manifest everything and throw the name of Jesus on top of it.
Yeah. I've seen it a lot this year where people are, you know, posting their, you know, manifestation boards or whatever we called them earlier. And a lot of it is stuff that like is out of their control. So it almost feels like them being like, okay, God, this is what I want you to give me this year, you know, and it feels like almost this wish list to God. And I don't know, it just feels weird. It feels a little out there.
Yeah, not only that, but don't you think this whole like wish list to God just sets yourself up for disenchantment with God?
Yeah.
Like you're like, oh, if this is going to happen, God, and then it just doesn't, and you're like, well, I guess God's not real. I guess God doesn't love me.
I actually think, I mean, so my wife and I have for a while now jokingly used the phrase manifesting, and in no way, like just fully for the irony of it all. But so I actually, because we have done that jokingly, I took a bit of a deep dive while just kind of after reading this article. And it's actually was stranger than I expected, the deep dive, because it's wildly different across the internet about what people think it means.
What they think it means when they say it. Yeah.
Because so much of it I read was completely the opposite of what that article talked about, where it said like, you know, you're manifesting the thing that you want. And a lot of the stuff that I read about it was actually more like you manifest the thing that you want almost with the expectation that you're just going to allow whatever that manifestation brings to you to happen.
That's a lot better than what...
Yeah. And so I was like, oh...
It's not the way we even joke about it.
That's way more interesting. And then I got even deeper. This is a deep rabbit hole, you guys. If you really want to go down, it's something. But they started to talk about like the universe, and as I was reading it, I was like, it is fully, they just substituted universe for God. 1,000%. Yeah. They just put a different God in its place, but like they even talked about like prayer and all of that kind of stuff. Like, say this prayer to the universe, and I was like, it's like so close, but like then there's the whole other side of it where some people are trying to manifest just the thing.
Yeah.
But like I was reading so much about like manifesting like what you want, but don't necessarily expect what you want to happen because the universe works in interesting ways, which is like what you've heard forever about like prayer when they say, God works in mysterious ways. It's like
that doesn't sound like you can make a New York Times best-selling book about The Secret that same way.
Yeah, but it was like, oh, how interesting.
Yeah.
And I got very like prosperity gospel vibes.
Yeah.
I think while like reading into it, but yeah, just moving a different God around, really.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's ever like manifestation that can be biblical?
I like this question because like it really comes back to how we're defining terms, right? You know, Kenton just brought up a different way of understanding manifestation than I think what's popularized around the internet that I've seen at least. But again, where I think like those vision or manifestation boards are those manifestation statements. What they're trying to get at is a goal. It's trying to get someplace that you're not currently at, and so where I think it could be powerful is just to help you focus on something, like to not just like in a moment, like a physical board or a poster board or a Pinterest page or whatever. I think just to have that in front of you, to know like this is something that is going to be guiding you this year, that I want to say yes to things that are going to open me towards that. I think that can be really helpful. In the same way that I mentioned earlier, like I have a word over this year, and that's pace. Like, so I'm thinking about that often, not saying like I'm going to manifestate. All right, manifest pace. But like if that's something that I'm physically seeing and it's in the front of my mind, I think I'm going to be more ready to see opportunities to live in that way. So I think it can help in a way to like lead you towards the goals that you want and the life that you want. I don't think that we can really hold God's feet to the fire by our manifestations or our visions to be like, if I do this, then God will do this. That's math. Yeah. That's like God is a genie. That's a whole different thing. Yeah. But if it's something in front of you that helps remind you and focus you in on the goals that you have for a life well lived, I think it can be positive in that way. And I think that's actually biblical, to like have vision and be focused on that vision, to be zero focused in on what you're called to do and who you're called to be. Yes. It's just we're defining terms a little different.
Yeah, I think the article says like the article that Abby talked about says, it flies in the face of like God because it's so self-centered and focused. And I think that like if you're quote unquote manifesting something that's self-centered and not in line with the attributes of, Jesus and walking in step with him, then like, yeah, that's obviously the wrong thing. But if your goal board or you're, like I said, quote unquote, manifesting something that is in line with, the truth of who God is and the truth of Jesus, then like, yeah, as long as you're not trying to hold his feet to the fire to say, I want this thing, give it to me now. And it's more like, I want to be a better blah, 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 person. I want to care for people more. I feel like you've now moved beyond manifesting and you're just
praying.
You're praying.
So it's like we're all just circling around.
It's so close.
Yeah. But yeah, I totally agree. I think that's really good.
Well, we are getting very close to the Super Bowl. It's coming up here in a few weeks.
We're in the final four of football teams now, right? Okay, so that's where we're at.
They don't really call it that.
I know, but that's what they're like. We're in the final four yet in this football.
So I found this older Reader's Digest article about ridiculous NFL requirements for cities hosting the Super Bowl. It says in 2013, the NFL's host city specifications and requirements, a confidential 153-page list of the league's demands for any city bidding to host an upcoming Super Bowl was leaked. Here are a few of those requirements. The league requires exclusive access to 3 top-quality golf courses and bowling alleys at no cost. 16 months before the game, the NFL will send 180 people to the host city for a familiarization trip to inspect the region. The host city must cover all the expenses, and they must provide 110 apartments for 30 to 40 days stays for working staff such as production and security. In the event of a snow or ice storm on game day, the city must give priority to the NFL over all other ice and snow removal projects. The NFL requires a hotel with a minimum of 1,000 rooms for their use with free items such as beer, snacks, internet, meeting spaces, free parking, storage space, and they're required to carry the NFL network on their cable TV systems for a year prior to the Super Bowl. If cell phone signal strength at the team hotels is too weak, the host committee must install boosters or cell towers. So there's lots more in this list that were ridiculous, but which of these surprised you the most?
I understand why they want to have some great golf courses available, but the bowling alleys, to me, I feel like you're thinking about the crossover from football guys to going bowling. That's something else. To be like, nope, I'm sorry, we were going to go with you. You don't have enough bowling alleys. Premium bowling alleys.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the article said they have like a tournament that takes place like a few days before or a week before, and I'm like, that's...
You never heard about that?
I have no.
That must be on ESPN The Ocho. I don't have that channel, apparently.
Yes, I don't know. I mean, I have watched those bowling tournaments on ESPN before, but...
Yeah. Another one that I didn't mention here, but it said that the host city has to tear up the turf and cut it into pieces for them to sell afterwards.
It's worth so much.
It's wild to me how many of these things, it's like the host city has to provide this for free. Like, it's not even like, we'll pay for it.
It's Super Bowl halftime show. It's just the publicity. You don't need anything else.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I don't know. There's some crazy ones in here.
But you've also got to think like, it still must be financially worth it for these cities to do.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and that's what's wild, right? Because we're talking about all the things they have to do for free. Yeah. Uh-huh. Like, they're ridiculous. But you're like, but cities are clamoring over to have this event. Is just a wild reality. Yeah. That, like, they would do, yes, of course we'll do that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course, to everything, right? Because they can make so much money. It's such an economic engine. Mm-hmm. It's like 3 Taylor Swift stops in one.
Yeah, but I mean, there are teams building indoor stadiums just so that they can be on the list of places that will actually host, the game. And I mean, they had like ATMs, but only the ATMs approved for like credit card companies that are in sponsorships with the NFL. Uh-huh. I'm like, money and everything. Money and everything. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. So speaking of the Super Bowl, who would be your dream Super Bowl halftime performance? I feel like you can't just go with like your favorite artist. You got to think of someone who's going to put on a good show.
So U2 did it in 2002. You guys should check it out. It's one of the greatest ones ever. But it's just funny. I think about this like. I just think of the ones that would just troll America. Those are the ones that I'm like actually thinking about right now, like the Grateful Dead or Dead and Company, like latest iteration of the Grateful Dead with John Mayer on lead guitar. And I'm like, it'd just be the funniest thing if they have like 13 minutes and they just play like one song and it's only like noodling on a guitar and drum solos. Because I'm thinking, what would America even do in that moment? Like I saw. It was Bobby Weir and the Wolf Brothers at a festival a couple summers ago. And Bobby Weir is one of the founding members of the Grateful Dead. And they had a 15-minute time slot. And they played one song with one sung verse. And I just thought, that's the most Grateful Dead thing ever. To come out there and just be like, what are these guys even doing? It's not even one of their popular songs. Yeah. It was just so funny to me. Gosh. So some iteration of the Grateful Dead with just a really long guitar solo would just be the funniest thing to me ever. And I would be grooving in front of the TV.
I want him to do like a I mean, I have a real answer, but then I have like the answer that I really want. But I want him to do like a tribute band, like not even like Pink Floyd, but they're like, not really. I mean,
why are the camera shots far away from all these faces?
They didn't even plug in their guitars. We've been there before. I mean, my real answer would be Chris Stapleton, because nothing beats that national anthem that he had.
You're right. That was an incredible national anthem.
Yeah, amazing. So,
but like it would be like country rock.
Yeah,
that would be fresh feeling. Yeah. And I think it's a very popular like thing in popular music right now. Like, but to bring like real country Southern rock into it would be.
I mean, there's absolutely a reason that it's often hip hop and like genres like that because they're so popular. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But like whether you like it or not, and I don't like most country music outside of a few artists here or there, but like that is a predominant like genre of music. And so like
it would make sense.
I feel like, I mean, Dolly Parton or whatever at Thanksgiving wasn't enough country. But yeah, I don't know. And you know, Chris Stapleton, he's written songs for everybody. There's so many guests he gets to have.
He did Justin Timberlake. He had a song with Justin Timberlake.
See, there you go. I mean, also, if Detroit had made the Super Bowl, I think they should have just thrown it all out the window and had Eminem perform.
That would have made sense.
But like,
would have made sense.
Man, that could have been cool. But go Chiefs.
What about you, Abby?
For me, I think I would really enjoy seeing My Chemical Romance perform.
Whoa!
Can you imagine Welcome to the Black Parade and them just coming up on the stage as the intro to Welcome Back?
When I was a young boy.
It would be so cool. They could do such a cool mashup.
You're an MCR fan. Oh man.
Yeah.
We got to talk now. I did not know this. But wow, out of all artists, My Chemical Romance.
I think
bringing back
cool.
like was that 2007 or something like that? Whatever.
Yeah.
And they have guest star of like Hawthorne Heights or something.
It's about
like
to get
that.
real emo.
Yeah.
Men with straight long bangs and eyeshadow.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Green Day.
Okay, our final topic today is a Forbes article titled, "Is 2025 a no-buy year? How to cut out consumption in the new year." Some influencers are encouraging viewers to make 2025 a no-buy year. Simply put, during a few months or all the way up to a year, folks are eliminating almost all non-essential purchases, including but not limited to new clothes, makeup products, perfumes, books, furniture, eating out, ordering takeout, and more. Elysia Berkman, a TikTok creator, said, "Some people think it's a bit extreme, but I think they just don't understand how stressful living with debt can be. It's definitely hard, but life-changing, and after a while, it's really refreshing to get off the hamster wheel of constantly acquiring new stuff and being sold to. If you're still nervous about holding yourself accountable or just flat out failing at a no-buy or low-buy, don't be. Any reduction in frivolous spending is a win and counts toward your goals of spending less, paying down debt, or just decentering your life from material goods." Berman says, "If you break your no-buy, don't give up. You didn't fail, just get right back up and keep going. Don't reset the clock to zero." So could you guys see yourselves making 2025 a no-buy year? I feel like would be really challenging.
No, in the same way that I don't make New Year's resolutions. I just can't. I can't imagine. Like, that's like the whole idea of the no buy is just like, well, I've already broken that so many times. It's January 21st as we're recording this, right? But I think that there's some great questions that we could ask ourselves, more questions that we should ask about the things we purchase and why we purchase them and our necessity for more stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm more of a like let's buy less, let's limit ourselves more than the no buy. Even though I get the principle behind it. I mean, I think it's always a good thing to live more simply. So I get that. But that's my first take. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't. But I also, you're talking to an accountant who also takes 6 years to make any large purchase decision. So I take forever. Like if I see something at the store, I will not buy it, and I'll think about it for 4 weeks, and then go back. It'll be gone. You know, that kind of thing. So like, I'm really intentional about not
impulse buying.
Yeah. It's never been really a thing. I mean, maybe when I was younger, but it's just not normal. But I mean, we also strive to live like credit card debt free. And I looked this up because I was curious because I couldn't remember the number, but like it fluctuates, but like 45% of America lives like with significant credit card debt. And like, that's wild. Almost 50%. Like it's just, and I get it, but it's one of those things where like, if your entire goal doing this was to eliminate debt, you would then be able to come out on the other side of it and honestly buy whatever you wanted because you would not be paying down your debt. So like, it's in practice great. Could I do it? No, but
and nor would you really need to, you know, like, and so I keep coming back to like that principle.
But in 6 months, when I decide I wanted something, I would still need to buy it.
Yeah. Well, that was interesting. I just gave a message a few weeks ago where we talked about just simplifying our lives and our relationship with stuff. And some of the practical steps I asked our church to take were things that I'd learned from John Mark Comer, great pastor and author, but just one of them was to stop impulse buying, like just realizing like how often we'll not have a plan to purchase something, but we see it and we just click buy it now. And Jeff Bezos makes it so easy to do, right? The idea. But inside of that, never impulse buying, to interrogate our purchases, to ask questions about it, to like, if I'm not going to buy it right now, can I learn more about it? Is this the best deal I could possibly get on it? And then honestly, by slowing down and by interrogating your purchase, there's some studies that say that we just purchase 30% less because that desire for it goes away after we didn't buy it in that moment, which just the psychology of our desires and wanting things is wild. But just like slowing down, asking questions, will this actually make my life better? Is it going to make my life more rushed and hurried? Is it something that I actually have the time right now to enjoy? And then some of the other challenges I thought were really helpful was like, instead of feeling this innate desire, I think based in our pride to own everything, like I have to have this, but to humble ourselves and be better at sharing things. And like when we have friends that have something like a power washer that I need to use once every 3 to 4 years, why do I need to own one? I could ask to borrow his. And he could say no, but he probably won't. Like all those different kind of things. Like why can't we just do better at sharing our stuff that we already have, and then humbling ourselves to be like, hey, could I borrow that saw? Like, could I borrow this? Like, I think that's just a really beautiful thing that honestly I just never thought of before reading John Mark Comer. And then just that, rhythm of giving things away, like just trusting that it's actually better to give than it is to receive. So to actually be living in that present tense of like holding loosely to the stuff we already have, it actually loosens our grip on wanting more things. And so I was just really taken aback by those and trying to put some of those into practice. But unlike Kenton, like I would like to say I'm great at not impulse buying, but sometimes I'll like come home and I'll be like, I just bought this shirt that I saw in an Instagram ad. I saw it today and I just bought it. Like, it was like so quick. And I need to grow in that. And I think like when we live with more of those principles of like not living beyond our means to where we're like just chalking up credit card debt to pay it later and pay more later. And when we're trying to live more simply and not be just drawn into or seduced by advertising telling us that we need this to make us happy, I think we probably won't do the no buy, but there'll be a lot less buying because we won't be as drawn into that story that doesn't actually pan out. So I was really encouraged by the principle behind it. But like I said, it's January 21st, and I bought a sweatshirt in an airport 2 days ago. That,
in an airport, even?
Oh, dude. It was on sale, but still the sale price is more than
airport sale? Airport sale.
Airport sale is still more than Old Navy would ever be on full price. But, so it was just one of those things where I'm like, I'm definitely somebody who needs to learn and grow in this for sure. But
and I know Joel knows this, but in the like music world, or especially guitar players, there's a thing called gear acquisition syndrome.
Gas.
So yeah, I mean, there's literally a saying for it in like, he and I are obviously love to play guitar and do all of that kind of thing. So we often are, interested in the next
cool thing.
And there's always, it's like everything, but there's always something new, even though it's exactly the same as what the other thing was.
Yep.
But like, yeah, I mean, there's literally a saying for what you're trying to avoid. And although I may be perpetually bloated because I don't actually do it, don't actually buy, I still find myself, I mean, I can sink, hours into just searching for it. Doesn't mean I'm going to purchase it, but that's still, I mean, I've now not lost money necessarily, but like time. I've lost time that I can do with other things. So like, it's not just about, I mean, yes, you don't want credit card debt like that. You don't want, but I mean, time sink and hours spent just, scrolling the sales on, Instagram, or scrolling, Etsy, or scrolling Reverb, like I'm sure Joel and I do. It's just, you lose time, not just money.
So you bring up all the ways that we can kind of cut down cost and like impulse spending and stuff like that. But why is it important for Christians to not fall into overconsumption?
It's a great question. I think my first instinct to like why it's a danger is because it's something that we think is going to lead us to be more free. Like if I had this, it would make this easier. I would make my life more free. I would feel more free. And I think honestly, it tends to do the opposite. Like Jesus talked about our stuff and money more than he did anything else. Like heaven, hell, faith, prayer, like combined. It was like a quarter of every word that came out of his mouth. And I don't think he was like obsessed with it for the heck of it. I think he knew that this was going to be his biggest competition for our hearts. He knew that this was something that was going to trip us up, and it was going to enslave us when he came to set us free. And so I think we don't ever think this out loud, or we never verbalize it, but we buy things because we think it's going to numb us, medicate us, make us feel better about ourselves, make us feel better about other things in our life that we can't control. If I just had this, then I'm going to feel better about myself. And I think Jesus, in some of his wisdom and the way he was explaining his kingdom, his way, was like, you guys, that's a crock. That's like not what it is. And it's going to enslave you more and more. Your desires will eat you alive, a la the credit card debt problem that we face in our country. Like, your desires for things you can't actually afford will eat you alive. Your desire for that next thing outside of you to bring you happiness, it will let you down and it will break you down. And so I think over-consuming, it ties us up financially to where we can't do things, but it also does something to our hearts that's just ugly, that we don't recognize. And living in the wealthiest country, not only in the world, but in the history of the world, I think it's attacking all of us all the time. And we need to be not prideful about it, but aware that this is one of the greatest enemies that Jesus talked about for us actually thriving. And we actually have the power to say no, but we need to say no to ourselves. It's not like the devil made us do it. We just need to say no to ourselves, or not yet. Those are both great things that in America we don't like being told at all. No and not yet. Nope.
Yeah, what patience.
So, but I think it's important because I think overconsumption, it just, it enslaves us, and Jesus wants to set us free.
That's awesome. That is it for this episode of Atypical Talk. If you have any topics or questions, you can email those to atypicaltalkpod@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok as long as it's around, Atypical Talk Pod. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform to get updates when new episodes go live. We hope that these conversations today have helped you think wider, love deeper, and partner with God to bring the up there down here in your everyday life. Thanks for listening.
The secret. See ya.